I've been wondering how to ask this question for a while now. But here goes. Does glitch production suck? Okay. A better question. Do I hate glitch productions? Well, no, but it's complicated. For those who don't know, which, let's be real, that's probably none of you, Glitch is an indie animation studio that mostly operates on YouTube, and they make TV shows aimed at mainly like teenagers and young adults. It was founded by brothers Luke and the other one, the other one, of SMG4 fame. SML is way better than SMG4, and I will die on that hill. Actually, maybe I won't because they're both bad. It's not a very high bar to clear. Although, the brothers actually cancelled SMG4 so they could solely focus on Glitch, which is a goddamn net positive in every conceivable way. Now, I have a working theory that Glitch Productions is actually Jesus Christ in disguise, and is the first sign of the coming rapture. Now, I say that because everyone either loves it to death or hates it to death. And I'd hate to be Mr. Fence Sitter, but like, I think it's just okay. Okay, from a objective, like real world perspective, as a company, I absolutely love Glitch. I love what they're doing. They're all about platforming artists and giving them the budget and resources to create their authentic vision, and that's coolio! Whether you love them or hate them, it's undeniable that the animation is pretty damn good. Sure, the older stuff isn't perfect, but they've improved a lot over the years. They went from Digital Circus, a 3D animated show that would sometimes leave in animation errors, to both make it feel more authentic and to help save on the budget, to Knights of Guinevere, which is a fully 2D animated series with amazing visuals. Like, I really think the production of Glitch Productions is probably the best part of it. I don't care if it's from a cartoon or not. YouTuber merch is YouTuber merch, and I will not be caught dead with it. I get that it's cringy and all, but this is one of the few ways indie studios can make money, and I'm not trying to be a shill or anything here, but from what they look like, a lot of the products seem really well made. And I'm not saying you can never ever criticize them. Glitch as a company has made plenty of decisions. I think one that comes to mind, it's funny because like nobody remembers this at all because it was like a few years ago. One that comes off the top of my head, there was like a controversy about poor working conditions, and I think it was because the company got so big, there were different branches with different overseers, and so Luke and the other one weren't like keeping track of what was happening, so there were some like managers who were being pretty abusive to their employees. That is something that you can criticize them on. I don't know if that's still going on right now. No one talking about it anymore, but still, that's an example. A fear that I admittedly am kind of sympathetic to is the idea that Glitch won't be indie anymore, like seeing them make these partnerships with Netflix and Amazon. Like, I do kind of get where that uh, anxiety is coming from. Like, I think they've said before that their goal is to like fix the industry or whatever, and the thing is, the industry is not broken, the industry is fucked. Something broken can be fixed. If something's fucked, you can't unfuck it. The goal should not be to help the pre-existing industry. The goal should be to overthrow the pre-existing industry and make a new one that actually puts the art and artist above money. And so far, for the most part, they've been doing that. Editing Bradwurst from the future here. When I say like the industry, I mean the like producers and executives and stuff. I don't mean the animators, like the people who work in the industry. I know they have it like really bad right now. I'm not trying to like make that worse. But they are actually, I think, trying to unionize. So that is something that you absolutely should go support. So yeah, future Bradwurst out. It's painfully ironic how Glitch fans will say they want them to stay indie, when really they just want them to not be successful. Like, the goal is growth. They should have bigger budgets and better production. Like, that's the entire point of making a company! And now they've broken into video games and even movies, and part of me is really excited about that. And then there's the other part of me that's a lot more cynical, just kind of thinking, well, they're probably just going to make a bunch of IP stuff anyway, rely on Easter eggs and cameos and nostalgia. And so they become just as bad as Big Bad Daddy Disney himself. And I honestly really hope they don't go that direction. I want them to just make a video game that's just a video game, or make a movie that's just a movie. Though, seeing as how the last one turned out, I don't think they will. Hey, editing Bradwurst from the future here again. So, I didn't really know that much about the leak situation when it happened. I didn't really pay attention to it, but I looked into it a bit more, and some people pointed out how it's kind of unfair how some fans can basically pay to see the final episode early, and other fans who don't have access to theaters or don't have money just have to kind of sit and avoid spoilers. And what makes that even worse is that some countries have laws against gay people and blasphemy, so they straight up just won't show the movie. So even more fans would be left in the dust. And I think I heard something about how, like, different distributors use different, like, file types, and they had difficulty, like, sending it back and forth, and then that's actually how it got hacked and the whole leak happened. And whenever they would start having complications with a distributor, Glitch would just, like, ghost them after, and, like, all of this sounds like they just didn't think this decision through, like, at all. None of this would have happened if they just put it on YouTube like normal. Like, for a company that's all about putting people before product, they seem really concerned with their profits. You know, you hear people say, oh, they're still indie, they're just big, and yes, that's true, but, like, they usually say that to defend Glitch, and something like that goes both ways, where, like, a big company is still a big company, you know? You're not the only Glitch fan in existence. You don't have to support every single minute decision they ever make. It's me, Bradwurst from the far future here. The amazing digital circus, the last act, has made over 7.8 million dollars in the box office. Do not underestimate the power of autism. This, however, means it's only a matter of time before my Saturday Night Live joke becomes outdated. You probably don't know what I'm referring to because in your time it hasn't happened yet. It will all make sense eventually. Do I think they could make just a little bit more of an effort to help the wider community instead of growing their own empire? Honestly, a little bit, kind of. Do I think they make too many goddamn pilots left and right? Yes, but overall, I appreciate them. I respect them, I guess, is the way I'd put it. Now, with all of that done and out of the way, I honestly think Glitch Productions is just kind of mid. Most Glitch shows aren't awful, but most of them aren't great either. I know technically Lackadaisy is a Glitch series, but I don't really consider it one since it didn't start out that way. But if I did count it as one, then it would easily clear all the others as the best. Such a shame YMS didn't like it, which is kind of surprising. I thought he loved animals. For every near masterpiece like Knights of Guinevere, there's a hot dump a donkey shit like murder drones. I'd rather watch a tri-split screen of dick figures on the left, The Pest starring John Leguizamo on the right, and a colonoscopy in the middle. All with a jumper cable attached to my tongue before I ever have to watch another attosecond of murder drones. If this video gets 15 likes, I will cover murder drones. Watching any Glitch show, really, gives me a sense of warmth in my tum-tum, knowing that Saturday Night Live will never make a parody of them, and if they ever did, I will commit acts of domestic terror. In Minecraft. But popularity is relative sometimes, maybe. I don't know, I'm not a researcher. Some people might say Glitch is underground and obscure, whereas other people say, well, it's actually very popular and mainstream, and everybody's heard of Glitch. It really depends on who you ask. But by the standards of the internet and what's mainstream on the internet, Glitch Productions is very popular, and that's actually why I don't really like them. I'm not saying that it being popular automatically makes it bad. It's more so just it's really popular and I feel kind of indifferent towards it, and really that it's just it's overrated. Okay, it's overrated is what I'm trying to say. It's not bad, but it is certainly overrated. This is going to sound incredibly mean, but I feel like the only reason why Glitch is as big as they are is like it's an issue of scarcity where they crack the code of like using 3D to make a lot of shows really quickly. And yes, they did build this gradually over time, but like the fact that they have so many shows and like zero competition, so like what other option are people even supposed to have? Like the only other I think big studio like them is probably Spindlehorse, and like come on, it's Spindlehorse. Nobody wants that. They're bringing back Zoophobia. They're bringing back Zoophobia. They're bringing back Zoophobia. What I'm trying to say is, by my own standards, I feel like Glitch is just too mainstream, and there's a lot of smaller animation channels that I much prefer watching. So, why aren't you just making a video talking about those, you might be thinking? Ah, touche, my little devil, touche. Because I haven't even begun to answer the question presented in this video's title, and no, it's not Italians. Just get on with it. Okay, fine. Today we will be talking about Goonoslop, I mean Gameoverse. I wasn't even planning on watching Gameoverse, let alone covering it, but a friend of mine recommended it to me and he seemed really excited about it, so I gave it a try and I was actually really surprised. I think this might be the first Glitch pilot that has me genuinely enthralled in what it has to offer. Gameoverse is actually a reboot of a cartoon from 2009 created by Rubber Ross. I intentionally didn't watch the original since I didn't want it to influence my view of the reboot. I feel like a reboot should stand on its own legs, and so far it does, but I will probably watch the original one eventually, just not right now. So, Gameoverse 26. What is it about? It's set in a multiverse filled to the brim with countless video game worlds, except there's a catch. Every game world has a hero and a villain, and whenever the hero defeats the main villain, their quote unquote game is technically completed, and their world will then be destroyed. A mysterious entity known as Dusk is collecting surviving heroes and has formed a group called the Farcade dedicated to preventing the destruction of more worlds. They are opposed by Warwick and his team of game villains, the Syntax. The catch, of course, being to save a world, you have to make sure the hero loses. Digging into the meat and potatoes of this meat and potatoes, I want to start with all the things I didn't like about Gameoverse. First things first, I hated Flappers. I could not stand that fucking guy. He needs to be taken out back and shot. Flappers acts how I thought Gobbles was going to act the whole episode. Like, at the end when they have the big emotional betrayal and Kid is all sad, it's like, I struggle to care because I want Flappers to die. I get that they wanted to make him innocent and naive so it's more believable that he gets tricked by the bad guys, but he's just so annoying. I was practically begging the whole episode, like, please don't make him a main cast member, please don't make him a main cast member, and god damn it, we're freaking stuck with him. But it's the first episode, and maybe he'll get better. I don't know, I'm not really holding my breath on it. See what I did there, holding my breath? And he's like an aquatic mammal. While on the topic of Flappers, and this is going to sound like a gigantic nitpick, but whenever Kit meets him, she says, oh, he's giving real side character vibes, or something to that effect. And I know other people probably won't care about this nearly as much, but like, for me, there is nothing that like breaks immersion more than including like modern day internet lingo. Maybe I'm just a crotchety old man who hates those darn whippersnappers, but creating your own in-universe lingo will always be more interesting than just doing whatever the popular meme trend is. Like, she's from a world of, like, tropical steampunk cat people, and yet she uses the term vibes? And yes, there are exceptions to this. Digital Circus is supposed to take place in the real world in 2017, so it makes sense why they would talk like that. And Lackadaisy is also era appropriate as it's famous for its accurate 1920s dialogue. I just hate modern dialogue! In the first act, the pacing is a little all over the place. There's just a lot of things that it's throwing at you all at once. Like, Kit's world dies like 2 minutes in. There's like barely an introduction and then a big action scene and then barely like a moment to breathe and then another big action scene. And I guess I do appreciate how it doesn't try to hold your hand with the lore. It can be confusing initially, but like once you figure out how it works, it's a lot easier to follow. Also, in the first act, I feel like there are too many jokes, and a lot of them just come off as forced and not really that good. But just like the pacing, this is something that does get better as it goes on. But whenever Warwick, is it actually Warwick? I think it's actually Warwick. Whenever the bad guy is introduced, they kind of do it with a joke, and I don't know, I just feel like the big bad should never be introduced with a joke. Like, imagine if Aku's first scene in Samurai Jack was the phone call. I don't know. I feel like even aside from that, I just didn't really, like, care about Warwick at all. He didn't seem to interest me. But I think my biggest issue with Gameoverse is there's just a really, like, unnecessary scene halfway through where, like, the entire gang stops and the whole plot just screeches to a complete halt. And misinformation starts pouring alcohol all over her feet, and then Kit starts like sucking on her toes to like lick the alcohol off. And for just 5 whole uninterrupted minutes, it's just Kit gargling misinformation's feet. And like it has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't contribute to the plot like at all. And then once it's over, they just never bring it up again. So I don't know. You could have just completely cut that scene. I don't even know why that's there. Now, with all that out of the way, what did I like about Gameoverse? For starters, I really like Kit. All her friends and family were killed when the game world ended, and now she's dedicated to making sure it never happens again. A pretty solid setup and establishes a clear motivation for Kit. She is very easily reminded of her past trauma, but isn't like constantly bringing it up or like being traumatized isn't her only personality trait. She's very optimistic, and though I don't really find her like funny, I do think she is very charming. But most importantly, I like how there's no irony. She's not self-referential or anything like that. She is just plain and simple a hero. The contradiction of her being a good person forced to do terrible things is really compelling. And because the whole premise of Gameoverse is world hopping, there's a lot of fan art I see of her interacting with different video game characters, which is just really adorable. I'm not going to show any of it because I'd have to credit the original artist, and I'm too lazy to do that. And also, like, it's interesting because, like, the mere image of her alongside Sonic or Kratos has so many implications. Either she's there to kill them, or their world is about to die. You know, there's the whole trope of, like, the character who's adorable but still a badass. Kit is something that I like way more, where, like, she's adorable and a badass, but she still gets the shit kicked out of her. Now let's talk her design. I really like her default outfit. I especially like the big dumb gauntlets and the big dumb shoes. And this outfit has one of my favorite design tropes, and it's when a character has goggles but never actually wears them. Taking a closer look at her design, I'm starting to notice some more like video game influence. Like, obviously, it's very heavily based on Mega Man's costume, but something else I noticed, she actually kind of reminds me a lot of the other Kit from Blade Kitten. Like, I completely forgot Blade Kitten was like a thing that existed and didn't remember until like just now. This is like kind of a nitpick, admittedly. I'm not saying I dislike the yellow jumpsuit, but like I feel like it doesn't really fit with the theme of her world. Like everyone else had way more dirty, scrappy outfits, and then she has this very clean looking uniform. And it's like, well, how come? Like, where did she get the unique outfit? Like, what? Now, something else that I want to complain about her design, and I seriously cannot believe I'm doing this, but her boobs. I don't normally talk about this sort of thing, but there was like a whole controversy on Twitter about the female designs, and I might be in the minority here, but I think they kinda have a point. I like exaggerated male body types, and though I wouldn't really call them exaggerated, the robots and murder drones all look kind of exactly the same, but that makes sense in universe since they're all popped off the same assembly line. Oftentimes, certain design elements just fit better with certain styles than they do others. But with all that being said, the entire point of Gameoverse is to showcase all these different stylized, unique worlds, so for them to just spam copy paste the Elastigirl body type is kinda lazy. I wouldn't go as far as to call it sexist, but it's certainly lazy. There's nothing wrong or bad about the designs in isolation, but this is a TV pilot where nothing is in isolation. On the flip side of that coin, the swimsuit debate does not have nearly as much basis. I've heard some people defend the swimsuit thing by saying, oh, well, sexualization and sexism aren't the same thing, and yes, I do agree. I have to push back though. Gameoverse really isn't sexual, like, at all. They're, at the beach? When's the last time you've seen someone wear a parka at the beach? That's why I did the Dusk Till Dawn joke earlier, just to, like, point out how ridiculous that is. No, look, I get that Kit isn't real, but to take one look at the clothes someone is wearing and write them off as a sexist stereotype without bothering to engage with the actual writing of the character, then, well, that's pretty dehumanizing and sexist. And this isn't to say you can't dislike certain art tropes, like there's a difference between disliking something and gatekeeping something. Like I think there's a pretty infamous tweet where it's like, oh, if you like this, then you're a irredeemably awful person. Like, what? So, is your critique that her boobs are too big or that her boobs are too small? Uh, both? Technically, I guess? Uh, okay, moving on. Something else I like about her, and this is like kind of silly, I will admit, but you know how she has the power where she can like switch between the different outfits or even fuse with Caboodle becoming the like kind of Mega Man suit? Now, seemingly each outfit doesn't have a unique ability or anything like that, but still, I just really like that gimmick of like a character being able to like switch between different themed outfits. It reminds me of the suit changing in early Lego Batman or even the power berries from Pac-Man. I think it's like because of my autism that particular type of thing is just something I really like. Even the plugs on her suit look a lot like the plugs in those old Imaginext sets. Remember Imaginext? Even the kit ship looks kind of like something I'd pass in like a Toys R Us aisle in like 2010. This I did not expect this to like tickle a nerve in my brain that hasn't been touched in so long. Kid is voiced by Erica Lindbeck, who some of you may know as Luna Helluva but can we not talk about that right now? And of course, Kit's trusty sidekick, Caboodle the Robot Backpack. Caboodle, as of now, might actually be my favorite character. I really like his design. He looks the most like he could actually be like the protagonist of a 3D platformer video game. And Jay Schlatt is just spot on casting. Like his voice is very distinct, but he's also really good at being like a mean asshole. The training montage between Caboodle and Shark Michael Cusack is the funniest part of the entire episode. See, this is humor that like happens naturally and doesn't feel forced. Being the only cynic in the team, he does provide a good balance to their dynamic, but if I had anything negative to say about him, it's that he wasn't really in the pilot enough. And I'm not just saying that because he's funny. I mean, like, he doesn't really have that strong of a relationship with Kit when he should, since he is her sidekick. But to be fair, it is the first episode, and they do get separated, like, right at the beginning. And finally, we have Gobbles the Lernosaurus. I thought Gobbles was just gonna be annoying and useless, but they actually do something really clever with him where because he's from a like children's educational game, he has the power to learn anything. But he actually does turn out to be like the smartest character in the episode, even catching on that Flappers was the main character early. When we first see him, he's absorbed into this like tablet game thing, which is probably meant to show him struggling to cope with losing his world, kind of like how Kid is. Actually, I think all three of them are meant to represent different types of coping mechanisms in response to tragedy. So Kit is trying to help people, Caboodle is trying to just ignore it and like pretend he's not bothered by it, and Gobbles is trying to distract himself. But that's just a theory. A gay theory. Happy Pride Month. I'm recording this in Pride Month. But what I don't like about Gobbles is that he sounds like a 43-year-old man. Actually, no, he sounds like the 43-year-old man from Flapjack. Actually, who does the voice of Gobbles? Let me see. Aaron? The fucking the Game Grumps guy? He's Gobbles? Oh. I think I think I just ruined Gobbles for myself. I just would have rathered he sounded like an actual kid, cause like Gobbles is supposed to be a kid, right? Now, I've already made it clear I don't really like Warwick that much, but he's actually voiced by the man, the myth, the legend, Christopher Sabat himself, the real voice of Vegeta and Piccolo. I actually didn't know they were the same voice until Vegeta and Piccolo are the same voice until looking it up just now. The real main bad guys are Misinformation and Fold, voiced by the iconic Elsie Lovelock and series creator Rubber Ross, respectively. Information and Fold are basically just the Wario versions of Kit and Caboodle. Oh my god. Oh my god. Kit and Caboodle? That's why they're named that? That's the joke. The pun is a little goofy, but she's called Miss Information because she's a tutorial guide, but she's also called Misinformation because she's cunning and manipulative. I mean, she was trying to manipulate flappers. Like, is that really that big of an achievement, though? I just looked it up, and Flappers is also Aaron. I guess it's a coincidence I expected them to act similar. Misinformation is a way better villain than Warwick, and you can fight me on that. And then Fold probably has my second favorite design behind Caboodle. Huh, what do you know, the two one-eyed dudes get at the top. Not because he can shapeshift, but just because his default form I think looks really cool. So far, the best part about Gameoverse is without a doubt the world building. Flapper's homeworld is incredibly fleshed out. They have all the bad guys and all the different locations and NPCs walking around. It can be really easy to overlook some of the hard work that gets put into stuff like this. Like, look at this background. Look at all the detail that was made just for this location to, like, explode and die immediately. And I love the kind of use of alternate universes as like a exploration of an almost fourth wall break meta-fictional thing where like what if when you stop playing a video game everyone in it dies? I've always been a big fan of genre mixing. Like just look at all the different types of bad guys we have lined up here. And if they're going to introduce a new game world every episode, then that'd be a lot of heavy lifting for world building, but honestly, I think they can handle it. The only complaint that I have with the world building is Flapper's game world is supposed to be a platformer, but it plays more like a high intensity fighting game. And then I don't really know what type of game Kit's world is supposed to be because it's also kind of like a fighting game, and then Gobble's world obviously is like supposed to be educational, but like what I mean is that most of the worlds, I don't know, I've only seen three, but like most of them feel kind of samey. Like the worlds don't have specific mechanics that you can only like do there, and I think that would be really cool to see. But I guess at the same time I don't really know how you would implement something like that in a TV show, but I don't know. Like, remember in Metarunner when Tari was doing the whole, like, dating sim thing? Like, put some more stuff like that in Gameoverse. Alright, alright. Let's talk about the crab girl in the room. And that is the whole concept of beating a game. Anytime I see characters killed off in this manner, with big explosions of energy and them getting disintegrated completely, my first thought is always, are they really dead? Because they could be teleported somewhere, they could be stuck in like a pocket dimension or something. Like, I feel like we can never fully rule out the possibility that they're still alive. And if they're still alive, there's a chance that maybe Kit can save them. And the only way to save a world is by what? Killing the hero? Then what? You leave and then the villain takes over and enslaves the whole place? There is an old saying, you either die standing or live on your knees. And every world has two fates, either die standing or be saved by Kit and therefore live on their knees. So you can pretty much make the argument that Kit is a fascist? This might sound a little fucked up, but like, what's so bad about everyone dying? Okay, obviously, like, yes, that's bad, but like, think about it. If every world has a hero and a villain, and its destiny is for the hero to beat the villain and for everything to end, then how is that really a problem? Isn't that just the same as like a person naturally dying of old age? Kind of. I don't know if I'm making sense. If someone is destined to be the hero and someone is destined to be the villain and everything is destined to end, then that kind of almost implies the existence of a grand plan or some kind of grand godlike creator or something. But hold on. Do you have to beat the villain to beat the villain? Like, what happens if you convince the villain to stop being evil? Is that even possible, or are they just permanently evil? Can you freeze the villain in a block of ice, or shrink them down and put them in a cum jar, or crush them by a rock, or just stop them in some way that doesn't involve bringing their health bar down to zero? Wouldn't you technically still save the world from them without having it get destroyed? I find it hard to believe every episode is going to be them just going from world to world failing to prevent mass genocide, but I also find it hard to believe that the whole show is going to be them going from world to world killing heroes. And it's not like they can warn the heroes because the Gameoverse has this weird white blood cell system that tries to remove anyone that's not supposed to be in a certain world, which really makes you wonder, is there a divine creator behind everything? And if there is a digital god, why did they design everything to be like a video game? What if beating the boss isn't even what causes the world to be deleted? What if it's some other hidden thing that we don't even know about yet? When you break down what a game over is, essentially it's people being punished for doing the right thing. Is there a metaphor to this, or is this simply the nature of how this reality works? A lot of people are speculating that Dusk is secretly a bad guy, which honestly just sounds kind of like profiling. Like you saw a sexy dark elf and your first thought was, yep, clearly he's evil, but truthfully, we really don't know anything about Dusk or what his motivations are. Why does he want to save all the game worlds? Or does he want to save them, or is he just trying to help the villains win? We don't really know. On the flip side, people seem to think Warwick used to be a hero, which, again, there's really no evidence for that, though to be fair, we actually do get a little bit of his motivation. He's harvesting these dead worlds so he can restore something, presumably his own world, and maybe even the worlds of the other villains he's working with. But why would Warwick want to rewrite the rules of the Gameoverse if he is a villain? Don't villains benefit from the rules? For all we know, maybe Dusk and Warwick are both bad guys. And so a lot of people point out the whole thing of like, oh, well, aren't the Farcade actually the real villains of the show? And like, they act like that's some kind of big gotcha, but I think that is true, but that might actually be the entire point. There is a quote from Kit when she's talking to Flappers at the end that I think perfectly embodies the entire theme of Gameoverse. She tells him, "You were doing what you thought was right. That's never a bad thing." That confirms that there's more to this than we think. Maybe Warwick is behind everything, maybe Dusk is behind everything. Either way, something isn't as it seems, and I really want to know what. And I want to know more about Lulu and the syntax and the Farcade and Kit's homeworld and the wider Gameoverse as a whole, and that's when I realized the Gameoverse pilot did something that no other glitch pilot did. It had me hooked. But the cherry on top to this already pretty delicious cake is that Gameoverse was made in dedication to the memory of Monty Ohm. Now, if you don't know, Monty Ohm is the creator of Ruby, and I haven't seen most of Ruby, but he also worked on Red vs. Blue. And me and my brother used to watch it, like, religiously. We'd every few years do our, Red versus Blue binge rewatch, and even my parents would sometimes get mad because I learned a lot of new curse words from watching it, but still, seeing his name at the end, It was pulling at my heartstrings a little, I'm gonna be honest. So, in conclusion, is Gameoverse the best glitch show? Maybe. I still think Knights of Guinevere might be better, but I'd say as of now, Gameoverse is my favorite. There, how about that? And hey, Glitch, I know I insulted you and made fun of you, like a lot, but like, if you ever run out of ideas for pilots, Plushie Academy is right here, like, I'm just saying. It's even got a female protagonist, and I know how much you love those. I know this video was kind of long, but I've been wanting to talk about Glitch as a whole for a while now, and man, there's like always another controversy like every 2 weeks with these people. But Gameoverse was a good opportunity to actually like have a bit more substance instead of just making fun of them for 2 hours. But anyway, this has been Bradwurst, and it's good to be back. I meet degenerate goth girls every day, honey. What makes you so special?